Russia said its forces struck targets in more than 140 regions and shot down over 70 Ukrainian drones in the past 2 days, while Ukraine claimed a successful strike on a Russian oil facility, and on Wednesday said its forces targeted 145 areas, including transport and energy infrastructure supporting Ukraine's military. The Russian Defense Ministry reported Thursday that 76 drones were intercepted.
The night begins with laughter. That's the part nobody outside the Black Sea Fleet will ever admit. A warm breeze rolls across the anchorage, carrying cigarette smoke, cheap vodka, and the scattered joy of men who think the war is far away tonight. It's Navy Day, one of the few breaks in a grinding conflict, and Russian sailors lean against railings, shirts half open, boots unlaced, music thumping through portable speakers. Somewhere offshore, a patrol craft fires a celebratory flare. Someone shouts a toast. Someone else drops a bottle. Nobody is watching the sea. And that is exactly why Ukraine chose this night. Because while the sailors laugh, while they relax, while their guard dips even slightly, Ukraine is already inside the perimeter. To understand what happens next, we need to rewind. Ukraine stopped thinking of drones as weapons. They started thinking of them as opportunists. The new generation of naval drones, fast, low, and nearly invisible on radar, don't just attack. They watch. They wait. They drift like hunters that understand tides, shadows, and human weakness. Weeks before the strike, Ukraine positioned several of these drones far out in the Black Sea. Not to close distance, but to hide. They rode wake lines, mimicked fishing boats, and even loitered near sandbars where Russian radar assumed no threat could approach. Patience. That was the doctrine. The drones didn't look for targets. They waited for the moment. And Navy Day is a moment. Out at the anchorage, drunken sailors become blind guards. The two offshore oil depots, massive floating platforms tethered by steel ropes, sit quietly in the dark. They store tens of thousands of tons of fuel for the Black Sea Fleet, feeding patrol boats, helicopters, and logistics vessels. They are supposed to be protected by coastal radar, thermal cameras, guard boats, roving patrols, and crew on watch. Tonight, the guards are leaning on railings. Tonight, the patrol boat circle is sloppy. Tonight, the radar operator is watching fireworks instead of Doppler echoes. The base's procedures are written for discipline, not celebration. Celebration erases discipline, and Ukraine knows it. Phase 1, approach. At 1:13, the first drone wakes up. Its electric motor hums at a frequency Russian sonar struggles to differentiate from generator noise. It rises from behind a stack of abandoned barges and slips into open water. No lights, no reflection, no emissions. 3 more awakened miles away. They fan out, not in formation, not marching toward a fixed GPS point, but moving like driftwood dragged by currents, bending their tracks in ways that trick low-level filters into dismissing them as background clutter. A Russian lookout squints at the water and sees nothing. To be fair, even if he'd been sober, he still would have seen nothing. These drones are shadows. Phase 2, distraction. At 1:27, Ukraine executes the second step. A noisy, obvious decoy drone charges toward a distant patrol craft. Fast, reckless, loud. It wants to be seen, and it is. Sailors snap awake, alarms ring, flares launch. The patrol craft veers off course, chasing the decoy like a dog chasing a laser pointer. Searchlights cut across the water, yelling voices echo over the radio. Every radar antenna on the anchorage swivels to follow the threat, which means it is now pointed away from the real attack. The decoy doesn't need to survive. It only needs to steal attention. It succeeds. Phase 3, entry. While Russia wastes time on the decoy, the real drones slip into the inner zone. 2 heading for the first oil depot, 2 for the second. They ride low enough that their wakes vanish into the surface chop. A thermal camera flickers once, confused, but the operator is already yelling about the decoy and misses the blip completely. The drones cross the 500-meter perimeter. No alarms trigger. No flares rise. No voices shout. Ukraine is inside. Phase 4, observation. Unlike previous strikes, these drones don't immediately detonate. They study. Each carries a stabilized micro camera and a small AI script designed to map vulnerabilities. Anchoring points, valve clusters, pressure control housings, fuel transfer tubes, weak thermoplastic sections. One drone drifts directly beneath the depot's platform, its camera staring up like a shark watching prey. A Ukrainian operator in a dark room murmurs. Target lock confirmed. Brace for chain reaction potential. The second drone isn't a bomber. It's a recorder gathering intel for future strikes. The third and fourth? They carry the payloads. Phase 5, strike. At 1:39, after 26 minutes of perfect silence, the operators give the command. The first explosive drone accelerates, still hugging the waterline, aiming for a pipe junction wrapped in a flimsy metal shroud. 500 meters. 300. 100. Impact. The explosion thunders beneath the platform, lifting it several feet. A fireball erupts, painting the water in burning ribbons of diesel. Russian sailors on nearby ships freeze, completely sober now. One screams, "What hit us? Where is it coming from?" Before anyone can answer, the second depot is struck. This one is worse. The second drone hits the fuel transfer manifold, the point where tanker ships connect flexible pipes to offload fuel. The blast ruptures 3 lines simultaneously. A sheet of flame tears across the surface like a horizontal tornado. The shockwave knocks sailors from railings and blows out windows on anchored vessels. Panic replaces celebration instantly. Phase 6, collapse. Russian defenders scramble. The patrol craft rush back toward the depots. Damage control teams sprint across decks barefoot. Radio chatter descends into chaos. But the worst part? Nobody knows how many drones there are. Because Ukraine always sends more than expected. Some are real. Some are ghosts. Some are simply metal boxes emitting the right noise. Every splash becomes a possible explosive. Every shadow becomes a threat. Fear becomes a second weapon. Meanwhile, the fires grow. When fuel burns on the open sea, it doesn't burn down, it burns outward. The flames drift with the wind, spreading like glowing sheets across the waves. A tugboat tries to approach. It's forced back by the heat column. A second crew attempts a suppression run. Their pump fails from debris ingestion. Russia is watching its own lifeline burn. Phase 7, the shockwave of realization. The strike itself takes less than 30 minutes, but the consequences will last months. 2 offshore depots, carefully positioned to bypass land-based Ukrainian missiles, are now crippled. Their equipment destroyed. Their anchoring points weakened. Their ability to refuel warships compromised. The Black Sea Fleet's logistics chain just snapped in the middle, and everyone knows it. A senior officer shouts over the radio, "How did they get through our perimeter?" A younger one answers, "They didn't get through. They were already here." That sentence hangs in the air like smoke. Ukraine didn't outrun Russia. Ukraine outweighted Russia. Phase 8, the quiet after. By morning, both depots are still smoldering, massive floating scars in the water. Helicopters hover helplessly. Divers stand by, waiting for temperatures to drop. Oil slicks drift toward the horizon. The celebration is over. The lesson is not. Russian analysts reviewing radar logs notice a chilling detail. The drones weren't simply fast. They weren't simply stealthy. They weren't simply small. They were patient. They hit exactly where Russian doctrine never bothered to look. They attacked exactly when Russian discipline collapsed. They struck exactly where Russia assumed no threat could reach. This wasn't luck. This wasn't chance.